What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back, and as always, thank you for joining me. My name's Paul Brettel. After going through my reasons for optimism heading into the 2023 season, today we're going to talk about the flip side of that and some big concerns that I have about this Packers team heading into 2023. But first, hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. You can follow me over on Twitter at Paul_Brettel, and you can find all my work over at Packers Wire. So as I just said, the most recent video before this one, I should say, was going through my 6 reasons for optimism about this Packers team, and now we're going to discuss some of those concerns, and a lot of them mirror the optimism side of things. So we'll start off with number 1, and these are in no particular order, but number 1, the inexperienced pass catchers. One of the reasons, I should say, that many thought that the Packers would sign a veteran free agent receiver or a veteran free agent tight end was the hope would be in bringing in that experience, that's added stability and reliability around Jordan Love, which of course is always important for every quarterback, but especially important for a first-time starter. However, the Packers are going with their youth movement among their pass catchers at the receiver position in terms of just tenure in the NFL. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Samori Toure, with their 2 years of experience, are the leaders on this team within that position group. Romeo Doubs has 529 career snaps in the NFL, and that's the most on this Packers team at the receiver position. And that in itself, while yes, he has a year in the NFL under his belt, because he missed time with injury, same thing with Christian Watson, those aren't even full years of experience compared to what most receivers see from a snap count standpoint. Then at the tight end position, the Packers have 3 rookies, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, and they just claimed Ben Sims off waivers last week. They do have Josiah DeGuara, who's entering his 4th NFL season, but he's more of an H-back, more of a fullback, and I imagine in an ideal world, that's the responsibilities he has, that's the role he's filling, rather than at the tight end position. And we all know, Matt LaFleur's talked about it a lot this offseason, the steep learning curve that comes from making the jump from college to the NFL at the tight end position specifically. LaFleur even said it's the second most difficult on the offensive side of the ball because of all the responsibilities that player has. Tight ends have to be able to line up in line, block like offensive tackles. They have to be able to know route concepts like a wide receiver. They have to be able to impact the run game, impact the passing game. They're moved around the formation, especially in this Matt LaFleur offense, lining up in line from the slot. We'll sometimes even see them in the backfield. We'll sometimes see them out wide. So it's a very, very steep learning curve. And I believe the stat is going back to 2003, there's only been, I believe, 4 tight ends in their rookie season to have more than 600 receiving yards. So again, it's a very, very difficult transition to make, a difficult jump to make, but the Packers are going to be relying heavily on young tight ends and a young wide receiver group. Now, as I mentioned in the reasons to be optimistic, within those position groups, while there's an experience, there's a ton of speed, a ton of versatility, which can create mismatches and just open up the playbook for Matt LaFleur. However, there's going to be ups and downs as well. We were all really, really excited about Christian Watson, about Romeo Doubs last season, and rightfully so. When they flashed some really, really high ceiling, high potential that both of those players have, but there were also inconsistencies. Christian Watson finished 7th, or had the 7th highest drop rate in football last season among receivers. Romeo Doubs had the 9th highest drop rate among receivers last season as well. In addition to that, when dealing with young, inexperienced players, could be drops. Are they going to, run the right route? Is their timing going to be on? Are they going to be on the same page as a quarterback? All of those things are questions that ultimately have to be answered once the regular season starts through the experience and the reps that are gained by those young players, the Jaden Reed, Malik Heath, Dontavian Wicks, the rookie tight end group. And as I mentioned earlier, in regards to Watson and Doubs, there still could be some, ups and downs for them as well. From a snap count standpoint, like I said, they're still, navigating their first season, so to speak, in that regard. They're also working with Jordan Love for the first time as the starting quarterback, and obviously they've had all summer to do that, but still, it's the regular season's a different environment. It's a different animal, and chances are, even with those two, there's going to be some ups and downs as well. Next up, let's talk about Jordan Love. He was I mentioned him in my Reasons to Be Optimistic post because of what we saw from him this summer. However, He's still a first-time starting quarterback. And with that, the growing pains feel inevitable. I look at the second joint practice with New England as an example of what we could see this season. For those who don't recall, the Patriots dominated that practice. Their defense did. And not just against Love, but against the inexperienced Packers pass catchers. And the reason I think that could provide a glimpse is because when you get those joint practices, one, the starters are playing throughout it. It's not like a preseason game where you may or not see some of the starters. The starters are on the field, so it's 1-versus-1 during those competitive team periods. On top of that, because the practice isn't being put on film, there's no all 22 for other teams to look at. Teams are more willing to show a little bit more, not be so vanilla as they are in the preseason with their offensive and defensive schemes. And with that, the Patriots, Jordan Love talked about this afterwards, the Patriots threw a lot of blitzes at him, used a lot of different personnel to try to cause some confusion, a lot of late movement with coverage before snap, post snap, again, to try to confuse Jordan Love. And that's not just something the Patriots are going to do to this Packers offense. I think a lot of the defenses that they face are going to try, some combination of those three things just mentioned or all the above. And the reason being, it causes confusion. It causes chaos, especially for a young quarterback, making his NFL debut, his first few starts. And so until the Packers put on film that, hey, we can find success against this, I think that's what a lot of defenses are going to do. And that gave the Packers a realistic look in those joint practices of what they're going to see this season. Now, I will say, the first joint practice, Jordan Love handled all that really well. He had a really, really nice day. I thought it was one of his best practices all summer. However, on day 2, I think similarly to what we'll see in the regular season, the Patriots were more comfortable with what the Packers were doing. And what I mean by that is we look to the regular season. The Packers are going to put on film things they're good at, things they like doing, and things that they don't handle well. Defenses are going to watch that. They're going to try to take away, all right, what do they do well, and try to put Green Bay in positions to do the things that they're not good at or don't like doing. Similarly, and while the Patriots weren't, watching film from from Wednesday's practice to Thursday's practice and making adjustments, there was an added level of comfortability. They've now seen this offense for a day, the speed that they have, the routes that they like to run, the timing of everything. And again, that takes away some of the mystery, so to speak, that the Packers offense, had in its favor on that first day. And again, it made things, that was a contributor, not the only reason, but that was a contributor to why things were a lot more challenging. Jordan Love had done a really, really nice job all summer of going through his progressions, taking what the defense gave him. But you could tell in that practice when coverage was tight, there was nowhere to go with the ball. He did start to press a little bit. And that's going to be one of those things where once we get in season, how does he respond to those situations? How does the rest of the offense respond to those situations as well? There's going to be tough sledding. How do they react to that? When they're down by 10 points, how do they overcome that? Once they put on film, like I said, what they're good at, and defenses adjust, how are the Packers going to counter? Turnovers. Jordan Love did a very good job of taking care of the ball this summer. Chances are there's going to be stretches where turnovers are taking place. Again, how do they respond to all of that? And right now, it's really just an unknown. One other note just from the overall summer, this offense felt like really either boom or bust. Either things were clicking and they were moving the ball with ease, picking up chunk plays, or they really struggled to move the ball at all. It really didn't feel like there was a ton of middle ground for this offense, and I think that's to be expected with a young unit, but also the speed, the versatility, the explosiveness that's within this offense as well. We also saw inconsistency during situational drills, 2-minute periods, red zone drills. Again, it was very, very boom or bust with this group. So again, one of the concerns, you got a first-time starting quarterback, and that's not, specifically a knock on Jordan Love. Any team with a first-time starting quarterback is going to have a lot of these questions. Next up, the safety position. This was one of the biggest unknowns for the Packers heading into this offseason, and Week 1 is just about here, and it still remains one of those biggest unknowns. It was going into the Patriots game, and Brian Gutekunst was speaking with us and mentioned that, nobody had really emerged for that, second starting spot next to Darnell Savage. And, they were 3, maybe even 4 weeks into training camp at that point, and no one had been able to separate themselves. Now, it does look like that's going to be Rudy Ford's role for the time being. However, still a ton of question marks with that position. I guess if you're looking for some optimism, it's not as if this group has to perform at a super high level to match what happened last year, or I should say to exceed what happened last year, because safety play a season ago was not very good. Missed tackles, miscommunications, coverage breakdowns, and that's really, as Joe Barry has pointed out, they just want consistency from whoever is back there, day to day, down to down, and that starts with communication pre-snap to make sure everyone in the secondary is on the same page. It means being a sound tackler. It means doing your responsibilities. What's the play? Where are you supposed to be? What's your zone? Who are you guarding? Are you there? Are you there on time? Those are all things that this group just has to improve upon and show consistency. And if they can do that, not to say that this is going to be a group filled with playmakers, but hopefully there's at least some more stability at the position than what we saw a season ago. With Anthony Johnson being a late day 3 pick, and he's also only in his second season of playing the safety position. His first 4 years at Iowa State were spent as a boundary cornerback. My guess right now, and this at least early on in the season, his role is going to be somewhat small. I think he's still developing in that regard and adjusting to the position, adjusting to the NFL. Dallin Leavitt, Zane Anderson, they're on this team to be special teams guys. So really it comes down to Darnell Savage and either Rudy Ford or Jonathan Owens. And both Ford and both Owens have shown that in the past, that they can provide some soundness, some reliability as tacklers, which again, valuable. This safety position, this defense as a whole, absolutely needs that. But I think the biggest question mark and unknown around this unit is how are they going to hold up in coverage? Darnell Savage was a big part of those coverage breakdowns, miscommunications last season, and that's responsibility based on the makeup of this year's safety room is going to fall on him. We know that he has playmaking potential, but he just has not shown it with any sort of regularity. And so after what we saw last season, knowing those responsibilities are probably going to fall a lot on his shoulders, again, at least early on, it's cause for concern. Next up, an inexperienced defensive line. A lot of the focus this summer was on the receivers and tight ends for their lack of experience, but the interior defensive line falls into that group as well. TJ Slayton is the second most experienced defender in this group. He has less than 600 career snaps. Devontae Wyatt has fewer than 250 career snaps, and of course there's rookies Kobe Wooden and Carl Brooks. The good news is that Wooden and Brooks both really, really impressed this summer. I thought the interior defensive line as a whole, and they just didn't have stretches of good play. I thought from day one of training camp to the end of it through the preseason, this group was able to generate a consistent push. There's more versatility. They look a lot faster out there, and it looks like there's a greater emphasis on shooting gaps rather than just trying to eat up space. And like I said, whether it was against the run or whether it was against the pass, they were able to generate a steady push into the backfield throughout the summer. So for those reasons, that was that's why this unit was also on my reasons to be optimistic about the upcoming season as well. But with that said, the regular season, training camp, the preseason are obviously two very different things. And as we've seen with this position group over the years, they've struggled against the run specifically. And I think we're all in the mindset of we need to see it before we believe it from this group. And when you're relying heavily on young players and experienced players like the Packers are going to, there's going to be inconsistencies from down to down, from game to game in terms of the level of play. And for an offense that the Packers have that may struggle to put up points very well could be at a premium, again, at least early on this season as things are being ironed out, the margin for error for this defense is a lot smaller. This isn't the same offense, or at least not that we know of yet, as years pass where, if the defense is giving up points, the offense has the ability, or oftentimes had the ability, to get into a shootout and be able to pull out the victory. We don't know if that's going to be the case or not. So the defense has to improve up front. They ranked 22nd in pressures created last season. They were one of the worst in stopping the run. And so any success that this defense as a whole is going to have starts with the interior defensive line. Starts with slowing the run, putting the offense in obvious passing situations, which then allows its defense to play to its strength. You got playmaking quarterbacks. You have a great pass rush unit. Go get after the quarterback. But as Matt LaFleur said, the opportunities to rush the quarterback have to be earned. They got to be earned on first and second down by slowing the run game. And so that's really where the potential, concern comes from. The inexperience, the potential for inconsistency, and just the trickle-down effect that has to the rest of the defense and this Packers team if this group is not firing on all cylinders consistently week to week. Now, one thing I'm going to add to this, locker room was open on Monday, had the opportunity to talk to Kenny Clark, and he said that there's going to be a different game plan for this Packers interior defensive line this season. He was specifically referencing the run defense. Just trying to, and of course he wasn't going to get into specifics about what that was heading into week 1 against the Bears, but in just trying to make an educated guess on what some of those things might be. As I mentioned earlier, a lot more speed, a lot more versatility with this Packers group. I think there's been a greater emphasis on shooting gaps rather than just trying to occupy space, eat up space. And again, that's helped generate that more consistent push. There's also a lot of versatility. We could see a lot of different alignments from this group, again, to try to cause a little bit of chaos, a little bit of confusion for offensive lines. With TJ Slayton taking on a larger role, that's more snaps in the middle for him, which means more snaps at defensive end for Kenny Clark and more one-on-ones potentially. And Kenny Clark in one-on-one situations is always a good thing. We've also seen in the preseason and in training camp a lot of post-snap movement from this group, stunts, twists. So I think that's something that we could see more of as well. So all of those pieces together, again, just speculating here, are things that I think we could see that on tape looks a lot different than previous Packers interior defensive line units. And like I said, hopefully that's the case because success for this group and this defense is a must. Lastly, concern number 5, rookie kicker. I mean, we saw firsthand the ups and downs that can come with relying on an inexperienced kicker. One day at practice, you'd see Anders Carlson go 1 for 6, and next day you'd see him go 6 for 6. And again, I'll reference that points may be a premium this season. Missed extra points, missed field goal attempts, those could hurt a lot more this season for a Packers offense trying to find its way than, again, in years past where they were able to put up points more easily, or again, that's the assumption at this point until we see how things play out. But with Carlson, what he did showcase were the two things that have really been emphasized this offseason from Brian Gutekunst, from Rich Bisaccia, on why the Packers wanted to select him. His power, got a big leg, and his ability to bounce back. Like I said, he could go 1 for 6, but he could come back and go 6 for 6 the next day. And that's an important aspect to have as a kicker because there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be missed kicks, but you can't let that hang around or linger in your mind going onto the field the next time out. It's a clean slate every time, and you got to do your best just to move forward from there. And with the ups and downs he's had, he has shown Case the ability to do that. In addition to having a rookie kicker, they also have a first-year holder in Daniel Whelan as the punter, who's, again, going to be the holder for them. He alternated as the holder throughout training camp with Pat O'Donnell when he was on the team. But until we see this unit in action, again, just because kind of the theme of this video, I guess, is the inexperience overall, until we see this field goal operation in play, it's just going to be a ton of question marks and a ton of unknowns around this unit and how they're going to perform this season. Could be a game where Anders Carlson hits a game winner. Could be another game where he goes 2 for 4 and the Packers lose by 3 points. I think anything and everything from those two outcomes and to in between is in play this season from Carlson. But the Packers, as we've seen throughout training camp, they're prepared to weather any sort of storm that comes from relying on a rookie kicker. The mantra from Gutekunst has been preaching patience. They know it's required. They know it's needed with a young kicker, and they're going to give Carlson the time to navigate that and hopefully come out on the other end as with the Packers saying, all right, this is the guy we can lean on moving forward. So there you have it, my friends. Those are my concerns for this Green Bay Packers team heading into the 2023 season. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's another video recently made where I go through reasons to be optimistic, but I appreciate you all tuning in. Hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. You can find all my work over at Packers Wire. So until next time, friends, take care, stay safe, and as always, go Pack Go.